Hey you, do you want to be woke?
I know I do. I wake up every morning thinking I would really want to be woke.
That's fantastic because I have a product that meets that exact need that you just articulated right then. It's a new book called The Babylon Bee Guide to Wokeness, and it teaches you how to be woke.
My entire life I've asked myself, how are these kids these days getting so woke? And I know that there's got to be an instruction book out there, but there isn't until now.
Now there is, because this book teaches you how to be woke so you won't get canceled, so Twitter mobs won't come after you and ruin your life. You get to know how to choose your pronouns, your gender. Buy this book so that you won't get canceled. You can order it today. Today we're talking to the god of thunder himself, Thor.
Shall have no gods before me, Kyle.
That's a good point, Ethan. Thank you for bringing that up. Heresy jar.
What day is it? Is it Thor's Day?
It must be, because Thor Ramsey's in the house.
Man, you sure seem Thor on the subject.
Should we start over? So Thor Ramsey is a Christian comedian and author, and he also stars in the new movie Church People.
I think he wrote it and
starred in it, helped do everything with it, made it, all of that stuff.
Very involved. And he has a book called The Most Encouraging Book on Hell Ever. Besides the Bible, or is the Bible not as encouraging as this book?
I would say the Bible's not always encouraging, right?
But overall, it's an encouraging book.
Overall, sure.
Right?
Yeah. Unless you're like...
But he's saying his book's more encouraging on hell than even the Bible.
I mean, I think it's a kind of always implied than not the Bible.
Oh, you leave the Bible out. Okay, well, we'll find out if you read it. He has a show.
He does this thing called The Protest Show that covers modern political stuff.
Yeah. He's gotten really political since Biden won, and so he goes off. And
it was a fantastic interview.
It was a lot of fun.
He's a really funny guy. He pitched a bunch of jokes to us, and you'll get to see what happens.
Yeah, you get to see what happens when you try new jokes on people, especially people who have dead, faded, withered souls like us here who hear jokes all day. It really takes a lot to get us to laugh.
Will Patrick laugh? You will find out. But it's a fantastic conversation, so join us.
And he had a great Carmen story that he didn't tell on the interview.
So you don't get to see it.
But what did he tell? There's the subscriber portion was meaty in this one. It was like a really long, so you don't miss the subscriber portion.
Don't miss the sub portion, and we will see you guys in a second.
He's walking through a Thor right now.
There's a bunch of lightning coming through the door and a hammer. Welcome everyone to the Babylon Bee interview show. Thanks for coming, Thor.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So it's got to be a hard time to be a Thor.
Hard time to be a Thor.
Well,
this is actually in my life.
The Marvel movies.
It's the best time to be a Thor ever, because now whenever I give my cards, like to pay for something, or most of the time the Generation Z, who's not to stereotype, but generally they're the ones taking my cards. They always comment on my name, and I always get like, "Cool name, man. That's fantastic." So, yeah, it's been a good time for me.
Are you saying Gen Z is poor? Is that?
I'm just saying they're the ones that have these. They're working. That's what I'm saying. They're working.
They're at the age.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
It's good they're working, right?
Yeah.
But they always give me the. So I think the Marvel things helped.
It's helped for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of the movies.
Yeah.
Comic books. I mean,
Yeah. Well, he's been around forever, but
he has.
Popularized by the films.
Yeah.
So.
Is Thor your real born name?
It is not my birth name. Okay. It's one of those mistakes you make when you're in your 20s and you start stand-up comedy. My sister had a friend who named her little boy Thor, and I thought that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reinvent myself because you're 20, you hate yourself, you become a stand-up comedian. That's part of the self-hatred. I don't know if you need this part, but anyway. So I changed my name to Thor, but I had to change my last name too because my birth name is Jeff Sides, and I couldn't go by Thor Sides because then I would be a pun. And you don't want to be a pun and a comedian.
I thought it was Jeff Sides. I was like, that's a weird name.
Yeah.
Thor Jeff Sides.
So there was Ramsey Pontiac. I had a studio apartment, Ramsey Pontiac, right outside. And I go, Ramsey goes with everything. So that was Didn't think it through.
Like on Pee-wee, the Pee-wee movie, when he just looks out the window and sees the name out.
That's
Alamo.
Pretty much it. That's exactly what it was. Exactly. Ramsey Pontiac.
But what led to Thor? Because you're like, were you going to be a Christian comic yet? Because
I was not
Christian
at that time. I was a pagan comic.
Yeah, pagan gods.
And I had this whole bit about my parents being 60s hippies, singing me to bed at night like a Woodstock concert was my big closing piece at the time, which was completely fabricated. No longer do it. But as I was telling in the pre-show, my wife's name is Dieneke, which is like, it's Dutch, not like, it's Dutch and it's hard to pronounce. People can't spell it or say it. So she always took comfort in Thor, and Dieneke, I could step in and take the bullet, and then, because when you meet someone, it's the first part of the conversation, your name. So Jeff and Dieneke, I just have to let her take the bullet. Thor and Dieneke, we can get by. So she said, I was going to go back to my family name. She goes, you do whatever you want. I'm going to call you Thor. So I stayed Thor. That's pretty much the end of it. So you didn't think it through, though. Now, my wife took my family name. So she's Dieneke Sides. My kids are Sides. I'm Thor. It's like, like, what are you people? Are you people conservatives or what? Because it doesn't seem like,
So you started out as a secular comic.
As a secular comic.
Doing the clubs.
Do we have to put quotations on in the show? Or?
What was that more for the morphology of that? You went from...
Put some music on when you say secular. Dun, dun, dun.
Bleep secular.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes black and white.
I started in clubs. Did clubs for years. And then,
These church people, man. They
got married.
dish out the cash.
Yeah, church people,
You just had much lower standards, so you moved over to the Christian side.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, I actually defend there is a Christian subculture. Yeah. I used to be critical of it, but now that I'm immersed in it, and that I've transitioned from, because I will say this, now I'll give first the criticism of the Christian subculture. When you go from clubs, and in clubs you are battling the elements, and by elements I mean blenders and drunk people, and so when you can make them laugh, if you can make people laugh in that environment, you've got, if it's a 3 in that environment, you go to a Christian audience and it's rapt attention. It's like doing theater.
Yeah.
And pregnant pauses are actually pregnant pauses. And a 3 is a 5 in that environment. Now the danger is once you get, it's the frog in the kettle. Once you get, comfortable in that environment, you can think you're funnier than you really are, because they're laughing. Every 3 is a 5 in that environment. If you're going,
we have that at the Babylon Bee, probably.
Yeah. This is.
That's why we got so successful.
I love. Well, you don't. There's no crowd. It's like that's what I love now about. It's like we do the protest. We're doing our second season of the protest show, but there's no crowd, so we write it and we just film it, and it's like. We hope it's funny because we have no idea if it is or not. It's like we think it's funny, which I like better. I like going with what you think is funny rather than because the audience really starts developing your show, and sometimes you go like, your performance stuff. You really go. I don't even know why people are laughing. I don't even find this funny. I'm not sure why you guys do, but since you laugh at it, I continue to perform it. But.
Yeah, it's another weird thing when you find a joke like that. You don't particularly like it. You think it's meh, but they love it.
Right. But now in defense of the Christian subculture, I will say this.
Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah,
because I hear this all the time in like movies. So we made church people, and you hear this criticism all the time. Why are Christian movies so bad? And you make such bad movies.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So, and I will say, well, and honestly, we do make bad movies, yes, but there's less of us. And we don't have as big a talent pool. But my whole thing is, it's really improved. The quality of Christian film has improved in the last decade. Tremendously. But Hollywood makes more bad movies than we do. There's more of them. It's like they actually make more bad movies, but do they make better movies? Yeah. There's a huger talent pool and there's more money. Because people are like, how did you get, these stars involved in church people? I'm like, well, if there's money involved, you can get anybody involved. Once there's money, people want to be involved. It's like, do I get paid? You do get paid. So, you just got to weigh the political ramifications now that you didn't have to weigh 5 years ago, maybe, being in a Christian film. But, so I think we've gotten better now. Hopefully it'll continue to improve. But Christian films are a genre.
Right.
And when you make them, like every genre of film, if you're making a James Bond, if you want to talk about James Bond, I can do some spoiler alerts. I just watched last night. But the new James Bond you can watch on Apple for $20. But the thing about genres is you have to hit certain points.
Right.
In Christian films, you've got to hit those certain points of the genre. Otherwise, people aren't going to be satisfied with the film. And so that's just part of the...
So atheist gets run over by a bus at the end of the movie.
He's got to come to
Newsboys
Jesus.
Concert.
Yeah, he's got to come to Jesus. That's right.
Yeah, so I assume that happens.
Yeah.
So what part did Kevin Sorbo play in Church People?
What part did Kevin Sorbo play in Church People? Well, actually,
or how many parts did he
in
play?
The original script of Church People, which was originally called Youth Group, There was a written cameo for Kirk Cameron in the original script. We had a youth pastor. In the original script, I had an assistant who was always quoting Kirk Cameron, saying, as my good friend Kirk Cameron would say. And then he would actually, and I actually looked up actual quotes by Kirk Cameron, and we used those. And at the end, because everyone was always giving him a hard time that Kirk Cameron, he didn't know him. And at the end, Kirk Cameron shows up to take him to lunch. So that was kind of the cameo, but it got pulled for some reason.
Oh,
but
sad.
We tried to get it with Kevin Sorbo, but we couldn't get him. So
Really?
We were not at that level.
We've got a hookup. We've got a... where's our signed Kevin Sorbo?
Oh, there it is.
picture?
It's signed by Kevin Sorbo even. Look at that.
Disappointed.
We have a Hercules action figure too somewhere. Okay, yeah.
Oh, that is great. That is good stuff, man.
This whole show is just me pointing out cool things.
Well, I was admiring the Carmen montage
yeah.
over here. That's like brilliant.
We'll get into Carmen later.
The shrine.
Yeah, I love
We have
this.
some questions about Carmen later.
So do you think, now this is just, I'm throwing this out there.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
about this.
All right.
Do you think that because you talk about the Christian genre
Yes.
and
Yeah.
what that means, like it's going to have this and this and this, and it's not going to have this and this and this.
Right.
And I always wonder, is that counter to what makes good entertainment? Like a really good resounding piece of entertainment is real. Like it has to have something that really resonates.
I think that's
is real.
I think this is something Christians have to come in, and it's theological because everything is theological. But it's a theological question. I think the problem for me, my critique of Christian art in general is art is about telling, at least when you're talking about fiction like novels or film, it's about a good story.
Right.
And Christians often start with the message they want to get across rather than start with a good story. And that's what it's about. And then you're telling your story from a Christian worldview, hopefully, and that should have the elements of the Christian worldview. And that's where I think that's where we need to get to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's the same thing now when you watch any kind of secular. I mean, secularists do it too. They do propaganda.
They're doing it a ton
propaganda.
right now. Yeah.
It's
So that's why the movies are getting so terrible.
Well, this is the whole thing. Is like, okay, I'm sure I can talk about this on here. You can cut it out if you don't want. But it's the LGBTQ agenda. It's like somebody sent out a memo in Hollywood, and I really think they did. Matter of fact, I talked to a guy who was a set designer. He says, "Don't tell. I will never admit this." He says, "But they're actually called the gay mafia, and they go from production company to production company, basically." What's the term I'm looking for? Well, they're activists going. It's like, so put a gay moment in your movie. It's like you see that all the time now. It's like it's almost, imagine if that was, all right, what did I just see? Oh, the new James Bond. I'm going to do this spoiler. So who's the guy that does? Is it Q that does the gadgets? So Q, there's just a little moment where Q is revealed as being, that's it. They just reveal him as being
He's got
gay.
to throw it in there, yeah.
I got a guy coming over for dinner tonight. It's been a long time. Now, imagine that was like, hey, I got a Bible study group coming over. It's like that's it. It's the same things. It's propaganda. It's propaganda, and we all resent it. You're shoving it down our throat. Now, when I watch them, sometimes we endure it because they really do great character development, stuff like that. And sometimes, I can't tell you how many Netflix series I've watched, and I'm 3 series in, I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done. You're shoving it down my throat. This has nothing to do with anything, and there it is, boom. I'm done. You're losing me. And
it's boring. We can call it, me and my wife, we can call it from the first episode. Like that character is going to come out by the end of the first season.
There you go. There you go. It's like pools.
It's just boring. It's just not good storytelling.
I saw it. I was watching, shout out to Say Goodnight Kevin. I was watching his review of Batman versus Superman. And there's just a moment where I think Batman's just walking up some stairs and he just happens to pass by 2 gay guys kissing. And it's like this brief thing.
I don't even remember that.
So he just he zooms in and he goes, gay! It's so funny just imagining what's going on on the set. We're like, hey, get the gay guys over here. Just to make sure the movie has some gay in it, just throw that there.
But it's and that's what we, but when we do that as Christians too, we got to realize 2 people will have the same reaction. You can't put propaganda in your, if it's not, here's the thing, God has ordained a means for getting the message of the gospel out, and it's never changed. It's through the preaching of the gospel based on the scriptures, and you can do that one-on-one or through a group setting. Or even if you do it like this, it's still that same means.
Right.
And film and television are not the, or fiction are not the means for that. Now, can there be, depending upon what your, subject matter is, it can be in there, but you can't make the movie for that purpose. Otherwise, again, it's movies have a different, art has a different purpose.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the hardest thing about it, because I think that a lot of Christians have they think that it's not
Spiritual.
spiritual. It's not right. If it's not answering the question, nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you communicate that.
I don't know what it is, why liberals and the secular world was always so much better at it. And they are getting worse at it. Like, it is getting cringier, It is getting a lot more on the nose. But, like Disney has been good at it for decades, not really telling this specific message, but still delivering this worldview, just by telling a good story.
Yes. I think it's because, liberals now, I think this is not...
I say liberals, atheists, same thing,
Leftists, let's say leftists, because I applaud classic liberalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a good democratic home, but the way I learned classic liberalism was you want to hear the other guy's point of view. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's that kind of thinking.
Right.
Whereas leftists now, they're much more, it's religious. And I think this is why Christians have not been good at art, because, it's just the same reason that Christians don't get satire very well, because satire is about saying the opposite of what you mean. And Christianity is all about say what you mean. Mm-hmm. Speak, we're people of the truth. Speak the truth. So you can't be subtle about it. You've got to speak the truth forthrightly and that type of thing. And I think that's why a lot of the leftist stuff now comes across as propaganda, because that's what they're doing. They see the world a certain way, and they've got to, there's no subtlety in their message. There's no nuance.
But also, Jesus used parables all the time, but he wasn't telling parables about people coming to Christ or coming to faith. Yeah. He was using these stories to make an analogy. And that's the hard thing, is I think Christian art, most of the time, isn't made for the lost. It's made for Christians.
Well, I think that is the Christian genre movie.
It's not a parable.
It's made for Christians.
And how does that line up with being, because this is one thing I struggle with as an artist, like, in the world, but not of. It's the calling, right?
Yeah.
We're in it, but we're not of it.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're flipping it, like, as Christians. We want to feel like we're of it, but not really be in it. So we insulate and create sub. So we create our own music, we create our own entertainment, and we hide in there, and it's our thing.
Which is deceptive, because you feel like it feels unworldly, but it's the same values, it's the same production, so same slickness.
It's the crappy knockoff, too.
It is, exactly. I used to use this analogy. I don't use it anymore, but since we're here and you can cut this out.
We're bringing it back.
It's like,
this is live.
It's like the porn industry years ago. Remember the porn industry? They take
really
some popular movie. Yeah. I'm not going to use it, because you can pump some popular movie, and they would do the, the euphemistic spin-off.
did that too.
And you see this in Christian films a lot of times. Like, this is the Christian version of, and you can name the secular movie. I go, it's the same. It's not creative thinking at all. Exactly. It's maybe that's business thinking, but again, that's the problem with art and business, art and commerce. A lot of times, commerce takes over.
Who would win in a fist fight, Joey Fatone or Stephen Baldwin?
Stephen Baldwin.
Okay.
Joey Fatone's got more girth, but Stephen would take him down. I'm almost positive.
Oh, okay. You sound pretty confident.
Yeah, I am pretty confident, because Joey's a sweet guy. He was I think Church People was only his second film. He did My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and then I think we were his second film, and he did a great job. When he came with his lines memorized. Sorry, Joey, but
he's watching.
If he would watch
this. He's a huge Babylon.
I'm sure he is. But but it was. I thought he did a great job, though. He was my favorite character in the movie. He was my favorite character in the script, and then he ended up being. He delivered it. So, ended up really liking him.
Got any cool stories from making Church People with all these actors?
Cool stories. Well, I think
nightmares.
The cool story. Well, I can share some of those.
Well, I heard you a good story about how it got made. It actually got made.
So Christopher Sean Shaw, who is the director of Church People, we've been friends for years now, and we were doing short films at the time. We're making these 10-minute films, and in 10-minute films, you'd basically shoot for 3 days, but you'd have a lot of times the same cast and crew that you would on a 21-day shoot of a major feature. Mm-hmm. So we made a few of these short films, and so I'd written this script called Youth Group at the time. And we basically culled together a group of industry, professionals that we knew, asking favors for because you're working for pizza, basically. And we took one day and we took scenes out of the script and we shot these scenes. We basically put together a 2-minute trailer. And then Christopher started, just blasting it on social media to the point it was just almost embarrassing. Sometimes you can go overboard and it feels embarrassing. It's like, stop including me in these things because now I feel embarrassed. But I actually had a youth conference call me up, wanting us to come there and show the premiere of the movie, and I had to tell them that no movie existed. There was only a trailer. So I'd be happy to come to the conference and show the trailer. But with the trailer was to get funding. So, but that's actually how we got funded. Stephen Baldwin actually saw it online.
Okay.
Called us. We had a phone meeting. Then we met with him live on the top of some hotel in Los Angeles in a suburban neighborhood. It was very bizarre. It was really surreal. If that's not your world, meeting Stephen Baldwin at the top of a hotel, and then his
like Batman.
It was because then we had a bunch of kids from, this is how many years ago? This is probably 6 years ago, but we had a bunch of kids from, I'm trying to think of the series, Hannah Montana. Some of the stars from Hannah Montana, because I think it was his daughter was friends with. But they come up and they're all headed over to Will Smith's son's house. Name drop. So it's just surreal.
Yeah.
And then he just came from a meeting with Mel Gibson that afternoon. Name drop. Pitching Mel was trying to get some Viking movie made. So.
Do we still have that name drop sound clip?
Yeah.
That we like to.
That's what it was, but it was.
Drop.
Well, that's why it was so surreal, because you're like, it was just this weird, it was literally like walking down the street and you see somebody who's, on a pogo stick bouncing, playing a tambourine and a ukulele at the same time with a kangaroo next to him or something. You're just like, did you just see this? Because that's just how it felt being there. That was surreal.
Mel Gibson was playing the...
Yeah, Mel Gibson was.
Sounds
exactly.
like Mel Gibson.
He was filming them.
He's Australian.
Yeah.
Kangaroo, yeah. As a Christian, you know God's always there for you, but sometimes things in this life can feel downright overwhelming, and you just need to talk to someone.
That's right. That's why the online counselors at faithfulcounseling.com are there for you. Connect with a professional Christian counselor in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient.
It is, and it's nice that you can talk to someone who shares your faith and values, people that specialize in depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, crisis of faith issues. You're not going to get that with an atheist counselor. I'll tell you what.
Right, and there's 4 communication modes: text, chat, phone, and video. You can start communication under 24 hours. Desktop, mobile, web, Android. Man, they got everything.
There's financial aid available for those who qualify. It's affordable, faith-based. So check it out. You can go to faithfulcounseling.com/BabylonB and you'll get 10% off your first month at that URL.
Yeah, why not get started today? Go to faithfulcounseling.com/BabylonB.
What was that again? Oh, that's right. It was faithfulcounseling.com/BabylonB.
Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor that you're going to love.
10% off. Check it out.
Check it. So when you were a secular comic and you were churning into a Christian comic, was there like a crossover period where you were doing dirty jokes at the club and then going over to the church and doing like nice jokes, and then were you both for a little while?
No, I didn't do that, but I did go through a period as a secular comic where the Funny Bone in Schaumburg, Illinois, the manager said, "I can't have you back. You're too dirty."
You're too dirty.
I was too dirty. And then I did an event in Orlando, Florida. They had an amphitheater there that Disney had bought the city, and they had
whole city.
Yeah, they bought this amphitheater for the city. But their rule was, when you have events, you can't. It was Disney still at the time had their standards, and there could be no swearing. So there were 5 of us secular comics that were all performing there that night, and it felt like 1,500 people showed up for this thing, but none of us could swear. So every single one of us were backstage like, do we have acts? Do we have anything that we could actually perform for these people? And I remember performing that night, and it was literally ages 8 to 80, and I performed, and it was like we were all doing like 15 minutes, so that's why we could get by. And but I remember it felt great to reach that broad a spectrum of people. And after that, that's when I started cleaning up my set and started working cleaner. So by the time I transitioned and came back to Christ, I didn't lose my whole act. 'Cause, I know guys who came to Christ and like they didn't have an act.
Yeah.
Like I came to Jesus and I'm no longer a comedian because I don't have a show.
They burn it with their secular CDs.
Yeah. So
It seems like a good segment or a good transition to our segment. We wanted to look into where's the line with Christian audiences on language, topics. We're going to throw some topics and things at you. Okay. We've had a recent internal debate. We had a recent podcast where I think we may have used words like gosh and geez and sheesh a lot. And Dan censored them all. So it sounds like we're swearing like drunken sailors. And so, so we realized there's different. The other day, Brandon was in there, and I was talking about that, and he said, "Well, I'm way more legalistic than Dan is about that. I go all the way. Like anything is a swear word that has any sound of God in it." And while he was telling me this, is eating a bag of these little cheese crisps, and the name of them was "Oh My Gouda."
So you felt like that was a little contradictory, a little hypocritical.
Yeah, total hypocrite.
Yeah.
But so what do you think?
You can apply it to your language, apply it to your food.
You have that? Do you ever get in trouble for saying gosh, or do you think gosh is over the line?
Well, I mean, I take it this way. So I've gotten in trouble before. I remember back in the day when the Left Behind series was like preeminent. It was grossly popular, and I mean that. It was grossly popular.
Disgustingly
I mean
popular.
grossly.
Yeah.
And so I did a bit on the Left Behind series, and it was my closing bit because people loved the series. I actually did a bit on the movie because I read 60 pages of the book. I didn't get through the book, but I was able to watch the movie, and I did a bit on the movie, and I was talking about this scene. So not to do the whole bit, but
Just do the whole bit.
Yeah, to do the whole bit, but I'd have to remember. I'm trying to. The character's name was Buck something, but I couldn't remember his name.
Character.
Yeah, and so I said Buck, whatever his name was, Buck Naked, was the joke. That's the joke. That's a throwaway line.
Yeah.
And I had people come up to me after the show, and it was like that was over the line for them.
That's ear porn.
It was ear porn. Buck that I said Buck Naked.
Right.
So it was, and it's funny the stuff. I did a Walmart bit that offended people because they felt like I was making fun of poor people.
Okay.
And so it's the Christian audience can be temperamental. So I've taken the, and when you're younger, you like I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm older.
Can you guess?
So I'm going to guess you're 38.
Haggard.
I guess I'm haggard today.
Yeah.
Too old?
Oh, no, guess him
Too
now.
old? Well, I was going to about the same for him, about 38.
Wow. Hey.
It's a little high for Kyle, a little low for Ethan.
Okay. Oh, was that a little high for you?
Oh, yeah, I'm 34.
Oh, that's not too bad. So
41.
4 years off. So 30s.
41.
I would have said mid to late 30s. And then how old are you?
41.
Okay, so I almost got you. But when you're younger, you like rattling cages. So I liked rattling cages when I was younger. And I hosted a comedy show. We did 4 seasons, only 3 aired, called Bananas back in the day. And when I first got that show,
I have the DVD.
as the host.
It's at my parents' house.
Well, I have 20-somethings come up to me. I used to watch you when I was a kid. I get that oh, man. But they offered to put my name in the title, Bananas with Thor Ramsey. And I actually turned them down. I said, no, don't put my name in the title, because I was embarrassed of the show called Bananas. I was embarrassed of the title Bananas, because I kept trying to get them to call it something else, but they were sold on they had a little tagline, appealing comedy for the whole family. They were sold on that. But had I not been like my older self now, I would have embraced being square. And that's what I should have done. You've got to embrace it. So these are your people, this is your audience, you have to embrace it. So now I adopt, and I think it's biblical too, I try not to do what will unintentionally offend someone.
Right.
So I just avoid, I know that there's some people that they equate gosh and geez as just variations of using the Lord's name in vain. So I just avoid that, because if I needlessly offend them, then why do it? But I know sometimes when we're younger, we want to make a point, and we want people to,
Right.
we want to rattle their cages a little bit. But
Well, we've got a bunch more words here, and we're just going to
Throw them at you.
sassafras, don't use it anymore.
Sassafras.
Sassafras. That's a Christian cuss word. There are a bunch of Christian cuss words,
hell. Can you say hell at a Christian show?
Well, here's a true story. This was a secular. Well, no, I think he might have. I'm trying to think of his name now. He wrote for Roseanne for several seasons for the sitcom.
Okay.
Before she was canceled. And I'm trying to think of his name right now. But he was a professing believer. Never did the Christian market though. Mm-hmm. But they were having a call-in radio show, and they were asking for names for their new Christian show. And it was supposed to be a Christian radio, a comedy Christian radio show. Mm-hmm. And he called in with a suggestion that's funny as hell. And it was just phone lines lit up and couldn't go there. So I think context makes the difference.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I would hope for most Christians. You never know.
Yeah.
How about naked? Oh, you already covered naked.
I covered naked.
Covered naked.
Gosh darn, we kind of talked about.
Yeah.
OMG.
OMG.
Saying the abbreviation, yeah.
I think some people, it would go over their heads, depending on their demographic, with the texting. I had to think of it for a second myself, even.
We'll find out what Dan thinks at the end when this is all said. Oh wait, no, Patrick.
Well, if you go that way,
Catholic.
If you use OMG, then
swears like a sailor.
I know you get in trouble just going that SOB.
Yeah,
you'd get censored for that. So I would assume.
Fart.
Oddly enough, fart's okay.
It is.
Yeah,
Christians
because
like fart.
every 4-year-old boy they don't even have to be indoctrinated into laughing at farts and burps. Right, I've got a 4-year-old myself, and he's right away. He loves the poopy farty, anything with that, and he's on the floor. That's comedy gold.
My wife and I were in bed together. I think you have a joke.
Oh, you're saying that this is the...
Can you say that?
Is that okay?
Is that too far?
Can you make a joke about that?
My wife and I were in bed together. Well, we're talking. If we're talking.
Just talking.
Depends on the context of the joke. It's like, if this is a honeymoon bit, maybe not. But if you're just discussing something. Now, it's funny though. So I've got, if I do couples, sometimes you'll do a couples, it's all couples. Mm-hmm. So I've got a whole bit on Victoria's Secret that I do, that I don't do when it's 8 to 80.
Gotcha.
So that's how I've started, but I can talk about things there that you wouldn't talk about. And I don't think it's anything over the line. It's just age appropriate, I guess. So.
All right.
Yeah.
What about O.J. Simpson jokes?
O.J. Simpson jokes?
You can get fired.
I get updates on the news, and I just haven't seen him.
He's not better than
He's just not topical anymore.
Yeah.
I think
he is on Twitter.
He is on Twitter.
Yeah.
He is on Twitter.
Back on Twitter.
He tweets random stuff now and again.
Yeah, about football.
It's pretty funny.
I didn't know that. So now that would be funny to follow.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. That's why I'm not.
I just like the idea of going in front of a church audience and you're like, so O.J. Simpson.
Well, in the context of O.J., because it is one of those things where you should be able to talk about anything that's true from the platform, I would.
Right.
And if O.J.'s tweeting things, then I think he's
fair game,
He's fair game, absolutely.
Okay, now I don't even know if we can say this word, but I'm fascinated by the word
donkey
because
it's in the King James Bible.
Context.
Yeah, it's in the King
You
James.
can use it in different contexts. Yeah. So I can say 3 different sentences and 2 won't be censored, 1 will, or maybe 2 will. Let's find out.
But
the jawbone of
donkey.
Well, I think
kick that guy's
donkey.
That guy's real
donkey.
Yeah.
Let's see. We'll find out later which one's got.
Which one's got censored? Well, I think it's the problem is we've gone from in a more sophisticated culture, but we live in a Beavis and Butthead culture.
True.
So it is, and now I don't know how many people need to be educated on
Beavis
Beavis
and
and
Butthead
Butthead.
are kind of a classic now. So
they are classic, but Mike Judge is extremely funny at satire. I think he is.
He's brilliant.
And Beavis and Butthead are really satirical characters if you watch them. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people when they first watched them didn't realize they were satirical.
I was in middle school.
So but and so you should take them seriously because in Beavis and Butthead,
role models.
When somebody's reading the Bible, the King James Version, the jawbone of
donkey.
You get the Beavis. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's why we can't say it anymore. That's the mentality.
So ruined by Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can you say the word vagina?
Never.
No?
I can't even say it in front of my wife. So Yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking. Yeah.
We had the word vagina in an article, and we had someone write us and say that we were publishing pornography.
Because you used the word vagina in
word,
that.
yeah.
Well, so print is different, though, I think. I think...
Print is different.
Yeah, because you're not saying it out loud. No one can hear except in your own mind. So, again, context, because, if you go to the doctor, I think the one time that, I'll say that, even in front of my wife's doctor with my wife there, I couldn't say that word. But the doctor could say it to us in that context. And,
right.
What word could you not say? He's not going to say it. That's funny.
Do you have any favorite replacement words?
I wrote a bit on replacement words years ago. I don't remember it, but I tried to come up with a bunch of. I think it's pretty standard now for Christians to come up with like a list of Christian cuss words,
right,
so to speak. But I used to use some, and believe it or not, in my real life, I used to have my substitutes, and my wife would reprimand me, so I couldn't use them anymore. So I got out of the habit, but I had a habit of saying a few things. But in old age, well, I've got a 4-year-old now too. So, and I have, to be honest, a 4-year-old boy, and in private, once in a while, actual cuss words come out of my mouth now. So,
I got a 4-year-old too.
Yeah, so
yes.
I had two girls. We have 3 kids, 8 years between our kids because we're good planners. But but with my 2 girls, I thought I was more spiritually mature than I am.
Right.
And I had a 4-year-old, and God shows me I have an anger issue, and still what comes out of the mouth reflects the heart, and so I'm still got a long way to go spiritually. But my 4-year-old has revealed to me. Yes.
Yeah, so my 4-year-old and still driving. Sometimes it gets me.
Oh, yeah.
The real me comes out, I guess. So here's a deep dive for you.
Okay.
Mike Warnke.
Mike Warnke.
Who knows who that is?
The king of Christian comedy.
King of Christian comedy.
I met
But he
Mike.
got taken
I've met
down.
Mike.
He was big time, right? So he claimed to be a Satanist. He said he was in a satanic cult with Charles
he had
Manson.
like comedy albums.
Yeah, full albums. He was the top.
He was the first.
He was the big
Christian
one.
comedy Christian comedy album I ever heard of. I saw him in concert twice.
Okay.
Before the controversy. We'll call it the controversy.
We're probably to fill a lot of listeners in, but
Yeah, so Mike Warnke, when you go back, and probably about the late 70s, when Christian music was on the rise, Mike Warnke was involved with, I think he was opening for some Christian bands, and one night somebody said, let me record this. I think it was opening for like second chapter of Acts, if I'm not mistaken, Barry McGuire or somebody like that, and you have to Google all these people. But they recorded his set. I said, let's just put it out as, and then they put it out as an album. The thing became a bestseller. And so he was drawing. Well, he was the Tim Hawkins of his day. No, and I know Tim. This is nothing on Tim. A great guy, good, funny guy. But he was. I say that to say that Warnke was drawing like 2,500, 3,500 people to a single night sellout performance at a convention center or whatever some venue that could handle that many people. And so, and then there was a little known magazine. This is Great Christian History. Great Christian. It's kind of it's like you should make a sheet, email it out to people, and then they can mark the things that, as we talk about this, the things that they actually know about.
Come around, children, and hear.
Yes.
Gather around as Thor teaches us about
Christian subculture from days yore. Yes. So his album became a big hit, and then there was a little known
he
rag.
had these crazy stories, right, about being.
Yeah, his first album was his testimony, really, with jokes on being a Satanist high priest.
He had been a Satanist type.
Satanist high priest was the thing, and so there was a little magazine in Chicago called Jesus People USA, and they really did what. Well, I mean, some people can push back on this, but I don't think Christians are good at journalism, investigative journalism.
Okay.
It's like, we're not doing journalism that's investigative. We're like, hey, what are your point? Let me, it's
Yeah.
like, let me.
Yeah.
A lot of journalists are just promoters.
Newsboys have a new album
Right.
now.
That's exactly it. And
How did you become such an amazing Christian?
yeah, and so they did investigative journalism on his story, and they did, and they ended up writing a book on it because Warnke had a book out called The Satan Seller, and they wrote a book called The Selling of Satan, and it was really facts. It was really, I thought,
I went in and like interviewed people from his past.
it was
They
good.
found photos of him back when he claimed to have like hair down to his ankles and piercings, and
supposedly
he just
when it
looked
was
like a normal
yeah,
guy.
saying supposedly when all these things were happening, when he was flying around the L.A. on a broom.
Hanging out with Manson.
Yeah, it's exactly. These things weren't actually happening. So, and that's not to say there may not be elements. So I think there's always that shade of people are complex.
Yeah.
And so
Everybody spices up their testimony once in a while.
Yeah,
sure, once in a while,
got to make it interesting.
and so that became a big scandal. And I think, this is back in the day when a scandal would actually hurt your Christian career. They
That was a burn, people.
They pulled everything out of the bookstores and everything, and he's had a little bit of a resurgence again, though, but not.
Oh, really?
Not. Well, I mean, I think he's
still
performing.
around?
Still around, absolutely, yeah. But not to where he was, of course. Not selling out, having bets, because I think he had 3 best-selling albums. I don't know what that is
Yeah,
in terms
he was
of like
huge.
gold.
I found him in my parents after they divorced. My mom had a box of my dad's cassette tapes, and it was in there. When I became a Christian, I was like looking for things to listen to, and I found his box of preaching cassette tapes. So there was like some Chuck Swindoll in there, and some I can't remember who else. But then there's this Mike Warnke. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, Hey Doc. Yeah.
Oh, Hey Doc, that was his Vietnam experience.
Yeah.
So you got have him being. So you got your pencil and rewound the thing back
Yep,
in the
yep.
thing where everybody listened to it.
But yeah, then I Googled him. I was like, oh man, okay, he's fake, or apparently, or at least according to Cornerstone magazine or whoever it was that did that. So
Jesus, people.
you like to talk about the topics of the day. You got a news show you're doing called Protest.
The protest show.
Protest show.
Yeah. Some people would say that. I had somebody say this to me the other day. They felt like the last couple of elections brought out what people actually already were. Like if you're very political, it just made you more political.
Right.
I don't agree with that at
Okay.
all. Because I was not. I mean, I always felt your politics. I try to inform my politics with a Christian worldview and vote accordingly. But I think our culture has changed dramatically in the last decade. And because I'm like, so I grew up. I don't want to date myself because ageism exists, but I grew up as I was in grade school during the 60s.
You're older than 38.
I'm older than 38.
Yeah, okay.
And in the 1960s, and I still remember the riots of the 1960s, late 60s, early 70s, and Berkeley and all the different riots. But the emphasis was on speech, that they wanted to be free to speak.
Right.
And now it's literally mind-boggling to come from that mindset with that emphasis, where people were being then assassinated because of the things they were saying. Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., they're being assassinated because of what they're saying, and it was horrendous to society. And then you come into our present day, and all of a sudden freedom of speech is, people are being canceled for what they're being, for what they're saying on Twitter. It's like I quoted you guys. I used you guys in a joke that was on what happened to you guys, I think, in 2020 when Twitter canceled you guys because of a quote you had about, I think, and I'm paraphrasing now. I've actually got it in my phone here. I can look it up if you want. But I think your fake headline was Antifa given the Nobel Peace Prize. And you were censored on Twitter for that. And I think the joke was, it's like, because it's hard to recognize satire when you're living in one.
Right.
And that's where our culture is now. It's like we don't even get satire because so much of the thinking today is satirical by nature.
Yeah.
So, but the protest show came out of Biden being elected, to be honest. I said to my wife, I've got to do something because this is an outrageous time we're living in. I can't believe this. I don't believe, it's like, I don't want to get off on voter fraud, but I believe voter fraud happened. And so I'm like, I got to protest somehow. So that's where the protest show came out of. And I didn't do political comedy before that, but the entire show is just political comedy. So we're going to start season 2 in about a week here.
So you're more left-leaning, is what I'm gathering?
Yeah, I lean left when it comes to all my beverages.
Got it.
I only drink Starbucks.
Yeah.
So, but everything
Voted for
else-
Biden 5 times. And
Voted for Biden.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I had I helped with the unmarked ballots coming in through the back door. So, all the Sharpies. Use a Sharpie so it can't read you, and then we can recalibrate. So, but
So why don't you just kind of let loose on a few things that are going on right now, like Rittenhouse Trial?
well, I didn't. So I brought some stuff here because
you're ready.
Yeah, I came ready because you're asking me. And again, age. You're asking me to come up with stuff off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Can't be done. But I actually did. So this is from the. This was a headline from the Rittenhouse trial. Judge in Kyle Rittenhouse trial dismisses firearm possession charge. So my question is, isn't it difficult to be charged with murder if you're not charged with carrying a firearm? I mean, it just seemed a little, it's like I thought one kind of went with the other there.
Yeah, never heard of that.
Yeah. So, and that joke's probably not going to make it in the original episode since no one laughed here at it. Because that's the thing I'm saying about we do this just in front of a studio like this, and so we're just like
you can try your jokes out here. That's
yeah,
fine.
Yeah, sure.
So I should try them out here,
Might
and that
steal
way, like now I'll know if some of these. But I did bring some of my best of season 20, the first season. So,
Okay.
So some of that aren't as topical. That might last a little longer, but yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the way that like things, you can't tell if they're parody or not, there's this meme that went around. This girl created this top 11 ways fascists are defending Kyle Rittenhouse. And I can't tell if this is real or not. Number 1, and these are all quotes people say that
You can't tell if she's joking
I
or
can't
not.
tell if she's joking. And I went through her Twitter trying to figure out like, if she's, and she seems like, I can't tell. So these are things people say, and you can tell they're fascists because they say this. He was acting in self-defense, defending property. 2, he was crying real tears. 3, he deserves due process.
What, you can tell he's a fascist because he's crying real tears?
You say he was crying real tears.
If you say he's crying real tears, you're a fascist. Yeah, she's serious.
This isn't about white supremacy. The victims were white.
And the girl, by the way, her pronouns.
She has her pronouns.
She, her.
But they're she, her, so. But anyway, it goes on. Put yourself in his shoes. The victims were no angels. So what do you think? Parody or
I like
not?
this one.
Yeah.
The facts of the case.
The facts of the case, ...
That's how you can tell if
That's
you're
a sign
You
of
can't tell because
That's a sign of fascism.
Well, say
if
this.
you're a person who relies on facts,
right,
you're a fascist.
right.
So that is frightening.
Fact, because the word fact is in fact almost.
We could
FAC.
actually write the satirical version of what she's doing right now.
I wouldn't be
identical. Have you heard of sea lioning?
That might be really good satire.
Sea light.
Sea lioning. How is Kyle racist? How is this white supremacy? How is he not acting in self-defense? Other incessant questions.
Was it like how a seal or a sea lion? Like
Sea lioning.
was a sea lion the same thing as a seal? Do they do this?
Is that, I was trying to figure out that.
Is that a puffin?
How is Kyle racist? Not you, Kyle.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. How is this white supremacy?
I'm gonna look up sea lioning right now.
Sea lioning. Yeah, I've not heard of sea lioning.
But these are jokes freshly written yesterday.
Okay.
So
here.
it's
Pursuing people with persistent requests for evidence or repeated questions while pretending to be civil.
That's sea lion.
like, what about
so you
this?
can pretend to be civil.
How is that? What,
like,
sea lions are known
Hey
for?
man, it's so good to see you. Such a faker.
Well, I think it's like following someone on Twitter and being like, "Well, what about this?" And then they answer with something else. Then you just ask another question. Well, what about this?
I think I've been sea lioned before now.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people don't like questions today.
Hey, I bet you've been itching and wondering about becoming a subscriber to the Babylon Bee podcast. I mean, we're always prodding and poking you to do it. Well, here's another poke. 10% off. How's that sound? Just enter the code PODCAST next time you go to that babylonbee.com/plans page. You go there, /plans, you put in PODCAST, 10% off a whole year of Babylon Bee bliss. We'll see you there.
So Kamala Harris this is a true fact. So I'm a fascist. That's a true fact. Kamala Harris is more unpopular than Vice President Dick Cheney, but we need to rest assured Oliver Stone will not make a movie about her. So HBO's
Good-natured chuckle.
Thank you. That's all we want. We want a good-natured chuckle. We'll call that a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5.
Although I'll have to let you know that he
would do better
he
in church.
cracks up at everything. Patrick does.
He's the perfect Christian audience.
So, and he's Catholic. Not even a. Never mind.
Well, it is disappointing because I've written a screenplay about Kamala, her time in office. It's called Searching for Mexico. It's the story of Harris's intense belief that the country has no borders. So intense is this belief that she never visits the border because it's not really there.
You only got a little snort out of Patrick's nose.
Yeah, that's the problem with political humor. It is tough. With political humor has always been, like, I remember, when I was, doing the secular clubs, and there was a guy named, what was his name? Will
Smith.
No, it wasn't Will Smith. He was a political,
I am.
Durham?
William Wallace.
Anyway, he was a political comic that never became, nationally known, clearly. But and because it's like he did political comedy, but it was always just kind of a chuckle. But he had actual content.
Well, the hard thing about you don't know which news stories people are following, and they have to really know the details to get a lot of the jokes. And that's one thing we run into is like we don't know which ones.
You gotta
people know this one.
You almost gotta have to give them, like I did that. I tried to make a joke on
rapid fire
the tweet going about.
You give him the context first. And
you have to give them the context first, and then make fun of it. Like the tweet going around about Kamala Harris, and she's great part of the team. And
Jen Psaki's tweet.
Yeah, the Jen.
That was fantastic.
Sake or Psaki?
Did you see that?
What's that?
I think it's sake. I don't know. I say it like the Japanese drink.
Sake.
Yeah, sake. Out of nowhere, Jen Psaki goes, actually, Kamala Harris is great and a wonderful person.
You just said that?
Just like, I don't know, like on Twitter.
And she's
not
been
in response
vital.
to anything.
That's why we've given her, we've given her control over the border crisis and over voting rights. And then, unstable internet connections. I'm not sure how that falls in there, but they put her over broadband somehow.
It is fun to watch all the politics and stuff, and it is so hilarious on its face. It is such a clown world, It
is a clown world.
It's kind of depressing, but I think if you can laugh about it, it's good.
Was it you that quoted, you had a quote from the Rittenhouse Trial of the prosecutor? Because I can't remember the exact quote, but your final line was, said the man in the clown suit. Was that you?
I didn't write that, no.
You didn't write that, okay. But that came from the Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone else wrote the copy,
probably.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Joel, good job.
Good job.
He liked your joke. You probably wrote that. Well, we ready for Subscriber Lounge?
Yeah.
Let's dive into the Subscriber Lounge, which we're already sitting in.
We'll put it on our
But we're going to
robes.
put on our smoking jackets.
Yeah. And we're
So
going
we're
to
gonna deep
about
dive.
your worst bombs.
Worst bombing stories.
I've got a good
more
bombing
cool
story.
stories,
Aside from this one about the political humor today.
Yeah. Second worst bombing story. And then we're going to get all the skinny on Christian celebrities, all the dirt about them.
Yeah, talk about Carmen.
We're gonna,
And I wanted to get through these though so I could see which ones are going to be funny. But anyway,
Give us the last couple.
and we can do more on the
Bring it
subscriber
home.
portion too.
we'll do more on the subscriber
Okay.
portion.
All
We'll
right.
do that. We'll save it for the
If you want to see more hilarious political jokes,
Yeah.
you got to subscribe.
Red to you live.
See, will Patrick laugh? Will he force a little more air out of his nose? We're going to find out. All right, here we go.
Coming up next for Babylon Bee subscribers.
Tell us about one of the worst moments of your life when you bombed horribly on stage.
Bombed horribly, yes.
Some of the greats, if you are a connoisseur of great comedy.
Well, I think
At least you'll have a new bombing story to tell next time.
A new bombing story. Well, I don't even have to tell the bombing story. You can watch the bombing story yourself.
Wondering what they'll say next? The rest of this podcast is in our super exclusive premium subscriber lounge. Go to babylonbee.com/plans for full-length ad-free podcasts. Kyle and Ethan would like to thank Seth Dillon for paying the bills, Adam Ford for creating their job, the other writers for tirelessly pitching headlines, the subscribers, and you, the listener. Until next time, this is Dave D'Andrea, the voice of the Babylon Bee.